How much fuel did your last tilefish trip cost you? And did you catch any fish? Most anglers make the long run offshore without knowing these 4 things that separate anglers who fill coolers versus the ones that get skunked. So in this video, I'm going to show you the right rigs, the right tackle, and how to read your depth finders and your contour charts to find tilefish, and the deep drop technique that has helped hundreds of my clients catch more tilefish even at 800 feet. So first, let's start with the rig, because most anglers heading offshore for tilefish are already rigged up wrong, and if this isn't done right, you're going to struggle to catch fish. The problem with tilefish rigs starts with the actual thickness of your mono you're using for these fish. Because you're fishing 500 to 800 feet down with extremely heavy weights, anywhere from 2 to 6 pounds of weight, you need heavy monofilament for your leader. We're talking 100 to 150 pound test line. And if you've never worked with that kind of line before, tying regular fishing knots like dropper loop knots is nearly impossible. So to build this rig correctly, you have to use offshore crimping tactics instead of knots, and that's exactly what I'm going to show you right now. You want to go at least 100 to 150 pound mono line. You're going to need some crimpers. Okay, of course you're going to need some 300 pound crimps. The heavier the crimps, the better. Obviously, we're using very thick line, as you can see right here. And then, of course, I'm going to show you like some of these tube baits right here. Okay, so now before we even get into like the skirts and the tube baits and these things, this is the same exact stuff that I use for fluke fishing. Take a look at this. Here's the glow of these lures in the dark. I'm gonna turn off the lights. There you go, take a look at that. This is all you need, is just the same exact stuff that we use for fluke fishing, really. I mean, you can tell these are all like the squid skirts. I use 4-inch to 6-inch skirts. All right, now for the hooks, okay, you don't need anything too dramatic, okay? This is just a 7/0 circle hook. Anywhere from a 7/0 to a 9/0 circle hook will do you just fine. I prefer circle hooks. You could also use J hooks. Just keep in mind, whatever you use, I always recommend an offset hook. Do not use inline circle hooks. Offset hooks will just catch you so many more fish. So we got where we're going to attach our big weights. Keep in mind, you're attaching some big heavy weights to some equipment. So this is a 350 pound swivel right here. That'll be just fine. And then of course I have some glow beads just to add some glow. One thing that you will notice when you do make your hook, you could also use a glow silicone skirting to your rigging materials for your hook. You can see that right here in this video. They live down very deep. They're very sensitive to light. So that's what I recommend. So here's our first crimp right here. You're going to take your line. You're going to stick it through the crimp. Okay, you're going to grab your hook. You're going to stick that through the line. Now, notice the curvature of the line right there. Okay, I am not fighting the curvature of the line. Okay, I'm just going to stick that through, natural. Then I'm going to take that tag end, I'm going to pass it back through the crimp right here. Now, I'm going to show you a trick here that a few people don't use. See that tag end of the crimp right there? What I like to do is, I like to light it on fire and blot it down, all right? So you're going to see that right here. So you're just going to light this on fire and just going to blot it and make like a ball right there, okay? Kind of see that right there. And what this does is this just gives a little bit extra security. See that? Right on the end of that crimp right there. So that's just a neat little trick there that you could use for your crimping. And now when I tighten this down, I don't want to cinch it all the way down where this hook has no ability to move. I want the hook to kind of move freely right here, just like this. So cinching it down about that tight is exactly what you want right there. Next, you're going to take your crimp. Never crimp this flat. You always want this kind of straight up and down, and make sure that the crimper that you're using matches the line diameter and the crimp that you have. Basically, you're going to stick this in, make sure it looks just like that to the side, never crimp it flat, and then you're going to crimp it down shut, just like that. Never crimp all the way down towards the end over the line. Always leave just a little bit of that aluminum out of that crimp right there to cinch down into your knots. So there you go. There's your first crimp right there. Now we're going to bring it up and we're going to do our second crimp, which is going to be for our line. There you go. So there is your piece of the rig right here. Now you could add some silicone tubing right here to your hook piece. That'll be absolutely fine. Okay, so now what I'm gonna show you is how to attach this to your main line and a little trick we use for that as well. Now for your main line right here, what you're gonna do is you're gonna identify exactly where you want the hooks. What I recommend is spreading your hooks out quite a bit. A lot of people will tell you to keep the hooks close together because tilefish aren't gonna swim far off the bottom to eat a bait, which is just not true. Your tilefish's strike zone is anywhere from right on the bottom to about 3 feet off the bottom. You are fishing at 600 to 800 feet. So a lot of people think that when you drop your line overboard, it's just gonna be straight up and down in the water column right below your boat. That's not true. You're drifting for these fish. So you're gonna have always some kind of scope in your rig, in your line. So keep in mind, if you have 3 hooks spread out pretty evenly, all 3 are easily within that 1 to 3 foot strike zone because of the scope, because you're dragging your weight and your hooks at an angle. So what you want to do is you want to identify exactly where on your main line you want to tie the hook, your rig section. So for example, let's say I want to tie it right here close to the weight. So here you go, I'm just gonna crimp that down and that's gonna be the spot where my rig goes. Okay, so then what I like to do is I like to put a bead on. So again, this is one of those glow in the dark beads. So I'll slide a bead up to the crimp right there. I'll put my rig on. Rig, by the way, is the business end. That's the end with the hook. Okay, I'm gonna take another bead and I'm gonna sandwich that rig in between the 2 beads. So I get a little bit of glowing here. I'm gonna get a little bit of glowing on that silicone skirt that I'm gonna put over the hook, as well as a silicone anti-tangle sleeves that you could put on the mono section of the rig right here. So now that you have your hook fixed to where you want, right in between those beads, you're gonna take your other crimp, you're gonna slide it on, just like that. And now you're gonna secure this hook in place with those crimps right here. They do sell pre-made crimps like this, where you don't have to do multiple crimps. It just kind of comes with the rigging. That's fine too if you want to use that. This is just really easy and really cost effective. And there you go. So there's your rig. Now the reason why you do this like this is quite simply because when you are fishing at depth, okay, and you are dropping it really far down there, what can happen is this could swing and want to twist up on you. And you see, this is called a helicopter rig. See, this could flow around freely, see, just like that, without getting hung up or without twisting your line or tangling. So that's why we call this a helicopter rig. And you rig this up 3 on top of each other, and you are really limiting your tangles and you're limiting your line twist right here in the mono. You do not want to twist mono, and this is the rig. So I like to spread this out about 3 feet. So I got 3 hooks, I spread them out about 3 feet. You know, worst case scenario, if your 3rd hook is too high, that's okay. So keep in mind, you're out in the great big blue sea. There's lots of things that live down there. We've caught tuna doing this. We've caught other fish doing this. We've caught rosies doing this, fish that feed a little bit off the bottom. So this is how we rig this up. This is the right way to do this. This just works out so great for us and for all our clients. It's what Captain Tom Daffin uses with all of his clients. This is the kind of stuff that we could teach you and show you inside of our offshore pelagic species program, where myself and Captain Tom Daffin walk you through all this stuff, walk you through the gear and the equipment and the tactics. And best part of all, you could use our Starlink system to actually identify exactly where we're fishing. You could pull up right next to us and fish. If you don't have the tactics down just right, we'll host weekly calls for you. We do it all. This is a done-for-you service that we're offering for you for offshore pelagic species of fish, including tilefish. So go ahead and leave a link below. Go ahead and check that out. You're really going to love it. And take a look at this. There is Tom Daffin, who not only puts us on the fish, but also cooks you a nice fresh breakfast right on top of the bait box as you're getting ready to catch some massive tilefish. So now you've got the rig built and ready to go. But here's the thing. That rig is completely useless if the tackle you're running it on can't get you to the bottom where those tilefish live. Here's a mistake I see constantly with anglers who are new to offshore tilefish fishing. They show up thinking they're in the right spots with the best bait in the world, and they've even watched all the YouTube videos out there, and they catch absolutely nothing. Here's what happens when you're using monofilament as your main line, not just as your leader material. Monofilament for your leader material is an absolute must. Monofilament on your main line at 500 feet of water is an absolute disaster. Mono has a much larger diameter than braid, and when you've got that much line out and a strong offshore current, it acts like a kite. It billows out, it catches the current, and even with 10 pounds of weight on the end of it, you're never going to be able to get your bait anywhere near the bottom where those tilefish actually live and feed. So braid for your main line is an absolute must for any deep drop fishing. I use the same braid I use for tuna jigging. Anywhere from 60 to 80 pound test line will be just fine. It's thin, it cuts through the current, and because of that, you're able to put your lures and your baits in front of these fish, even at extreme depths. The other piece of this that so many anglers get wrong is the rod and reel setups. You can use two types of reels for this type of fishing, one being a conventional reel like you see here, like a Shimano Talica, the other being an electric reel like you see here. If you really want to use a conventional reel, make sure it's a 2-speed reel and make sure that you're reeling in with the torque on the low speed and you're not reeling in high gear. Reeling in at tuna speed with 6 pounds of weight at 600 feet is going to be utterly exhausting. The slower gear ratio will ensure a nice, steady, non-stressful retrieve all the way up to the surface. For electric reels, you do not need to buy the crazy expensive crap that all these YouTubers out there are telling you to buy. Some of these reels are $900, $1,000, $1,500, and that's not including your line, the rod, or the battery that is used to operate the reel. So you're looking at well over $2,000 just for a rod and reel setup to catch yourself some tilefish. So don't do that. You could get a much more affordable reel for this fishing, like a PC Fun Kraken or PC Fun Atlantics. I've been using PC Fun reels for years and years and years. They have no idea I'm making this video. You know, I'm not working with them here. It's just gear that I like and I use, and it could save you a lot of money. You can even save more money if you use a promo code JFA15. I'll leave a link of all this stuff in the description below to help you save some money out there on otherwise very expensive gear for offshore fish. So now, just re-emphasizing the fact that you do not need super expensive gear, take a look at this. This is a Penn Battle with 20-pound test line and a 100-gram jig, getting all the way down to 600 feet and catching a bunch of tilefish. A Penn Battle is not a $1,000 reel, and look, it's getting the job done. You can jig for these fish with lighter gear. Remember I told you light braid will get down to depth very easily, and that is absolutely the case here. The thing is, you can jig for these fish with gear that you already own, and I'll make a separate video on that, but the point is that you don't have to kill yourself with all this expensive gear like most of these people are telling you. Now, this next step is something that Captain Tom Daffin and I really specialize in, and we host weekly meetings to help you game plan for these spots and for where you're going to find these fish. But we also take it a step further and we give you our exact coordinates of where we're fishing, whether it's tilefish or tuna or marlin. We tell you exactly where we're being successful, exactly where we're seeing the fish, and worst case scenario, we use our Starlink system so that you could actually contact us live and come right up next to us while we're out there and fish with us. And we'll even tell you step by step what we're doing, how we're catching the fish, and you could do it too. This is literally the closest thing you could get to a done for you process in fishing. There's no other offer out there like that. Again, I'll leave it in the description below if you're interested to check it out. And if not, let's get into more of the free content. So most anglers think that if they're in 500 feet of water, they're in tilefish territory. And that's exactly why they spend hours deep drop fishing without catching any fish. 500 feet is just a depth. It's just a number. It tells you nothing about what's actually going on in the bottom underneath you, and tilefish are not just randomly scattered across the ocean floor. They live in very specific types of bottom and very specific set of conditions, and if you're not on that bottom, you are fishing in dead zones no matter how good your rig is or how perfect your tackle is set up. So let me show you exactly what you're looking for to find these tilefish. So first and foremost, you have to find mud bottom. This is easily displayed on your depth finder or fish finder as soft red or a lighter red color on the bottom, signifying a softer bottom, that mud, which is critical because that is actually where the tilefish live. They will burrow holes into the mud, they'll live there, they'll come out to feed, that's where you're going to catch them. If you're looking at dark red or very thick red on the bottom of your screen, you're hitting hard bottom and no tilefish will be living in the rocks. Now, many people will tell you just find mud flats offshore and you'll find tilefish, and nothing could be further from the truth. Although tilefish are not going to be found in drastic depth changes like the drop off of a canyon, like every fish we discuss on this channel, they will favor mud flats or water adjacent to that deeper water, or favor mud bottom in combination with a hole or a lump or some other type of structure where the current can push bait to the fish and the tilefish can wait in ambush for them and exert least amount of energy to grab themselves some food. So to find these areas, you just need to find some contour lines that are spread out a little bit, which shows some more gradual drop off instead of a steep drop off. And you need to find areas where those spread out contour lines are adjacent to deeper water ledges where a lot of bait fish will gather and current will disorientate fish where those tilefish can take advantage of it. But here's where I take finding fish a step further than just reading contour lines. And this is the same process we use with every single one of my offshore clients finding their pelagic species of fish. And it's called the fishing triangle. So the fishing triangle looks at three things: the fish's comfort zone, their protection from predators, and their easy access to food. When all three of those overlap on your GPS screen or your fish finder, whatever you might be looking at, that's where you need to be dropping. So let's take a look at the fish's comfort zone. Well, the temperature range isn't going to fluctuate much at 800 feet because that sun is just not beating down on there. However, their comfort zone could be the depth, and it's definitely those mud areas. So if you find the correct depth with the correct mud and you're seeing the fish on the sonar, well, that's a good place to start looking. Now, their protection from predators again relates to that mud. As they can dig down, they dig holes into the mud to hide from their predators. And of course, their easy access to food is that structure that we talked about, those holes, those lumps, or those adjacent mud flats next to deep ledges where a lot of bait is going to accumulate, and those fish could have easy access to their food. Tilefish are basically homebodies. They don't want to roam around too much. So the more precise you could identify that overlap, the more fish you're going to put in the boat. So once you've got the right spot locked in, the last thing standing between you and a box full of tilefish is knowing exactly how to work that bait once it hits the bottom. And this is where I see even the most experienced anglers make these mistakes that cost them just a ton of tilefish. If you set the hook wrong and you set the hook like a maniac at 500 feet, like you see on the Bassmaster Classic, you are just going to lose that fish, or you're going to lose your bait, and you're going to have to reel in a very long way up with empty hooks, wasting a ton of time, a ton of energy, and not fishing very effectively. So at 500 to 800 feet of water, if a tilefish just grabs the end of your bait and you rip that rod back with everything you've got, you're not setting the hook on the fish, you're just ripping the bait out of the fish's mouth. Or if the fish does have the hook in his mouth, you could actually be ripping the hook right out of the fish's mouth if the hook did not turn, and you're not going to get a good hook set. And now if that happens, you've got to reel that thing up 800 feet with just empty hooks, and that's going to be a very long day. So here's what you do instead. If you're fishing with a circle hook, you feel the bite and you do absolutely nothing. Then you let the line come tight and you let the weight of the fish set the hook for you. Only when you feel the weight of that fish do you begin to reel in or put pressure on the fish. If you're using a J hook, you do the exact same thing, but this time when you feel the weight of the fish, you set the hook. You simply and gently lift up on the rod to set the hook. Nothing crazy. If you're using an electric reel, you still don't need to do anything dramatic. Simply lock up the reel, give it a couple of slow cranks to confirm the fish is on and pulling back against you, and then start powering up slowly and steadily. Do not blast the electric reel on full power. You'll again pull the hook just like a crazy Bassmaster Classic hook set. Bring it up slow, keep the pressure on, and let the gear do the work. Whether you're using circle hooks or J hooks, the principle is exactly the same. The hook set happens on the weight of the fish, not on the bite. So in this video, hopefully you figure out the right rigs, the right tackle, and how to find those fish on the bottom in 500 to 800 feet of water. And if you follow these 4 steps on your next offshore fishing trip, you have a great chance of not getting skunked. However, here's what I want to offer you on top of that. Because knowing the process that I've laid out in this video and having someone put you directly on the fish are two very different things. And that's exactly what my personalized fishing service does. Myself and Captain Tom Daffin don't just just teach you the processes. We give you the exact spots, the exact locations, the GPS coordinates. We have weekly calls with you, and we even use a starlight system to help you find us while we're out on the water so you can fish right next to us and learn exactly what to do to catch yourself offshore pelagic species of fish. If that's something that you like and you want to be a part of, the link will be in the description below. We are keeping this to a super exclusive group of people because we don't want massive fleets of boats following us around while we're out there at sea. So get in now while it lasts. If you click the link and there's a waiting list, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait until somebody drops out. And if you want further free content, well, go ahead and click on this video right here where I'll show you how exactly these tactics can catch absolute monsters on even inshore environments as well. So thanks for tuning in, Fish Lots. I'll see you out there on the water.